Chernobyl, if you know what I mean. You gotta help us, Claire. Let the world know what's really going on.
Resident Evil has long been one of the most influential names in survival horror, shaping not only video games but also the zombie genre in film and television. Over the years, multiple adaptations attempted to translate the franchise's intense atmosphere, the IO horror themes, and corporate conspiracy storyline onto the big screen. With the announcement of a new reboot, the franchise is once again preparing to reintroduce its world of viral outbreaks, mutated creatures, and collapsing cities to a new generation of viewers, while also attempting to reconnect with longtime fans who have been waiting for a more faithful and terrifying interpretation of the original concept. The reboot is being designed as a fresh starting point rather than a continuation of previous movie timelines. Earlier film series had built their own mythology with original characters and action-heavy storytelling, but the new project is structured to stand on its own and present a darker, more grounded take on the Resident Evil universe. This creative decision allows the filmmakers to reshape the tone of the story, moving away from stylized action and toward a stronger focus on survival, fear, and the unpredictable nature of biological horror. At the heart of the Resident Evil world lies the concept of a powerful corporation whose experiments with advanced biotechnology spiral out of control. The reboot leans heavily into this idea, exploring how scientific ambition and corporate secrecy can lead to catastrophic consequences. Instead of presenting the outbreak as a simple disaster, the narrative treats it as the result of deliberate choices made by individuals who believe they could control forces far beyond their understanding. This theme of human arrogance and the danger of unchecked power has always been central to the franchise, and the new film emphasizes it even more strongly, framing the outbreak as both a scientific tragedy and a moral failure. The setting plays a crucial role in shaping the atmosphere of the story. The reboot is expected to revisit the iconic locations associated with the early stages of the outbreak, particularly environments that feel isolated, decaying, and increasingly hostile as the infection spreads. Abandoned facilities, dark corridors, and urban spaces slowly being reclaimed by chaos help create a sense of claustrophobia and constant danger. By focusing on confined environments rather than large-scale battles, the film aims to capture the tension and vulnerability that define the earliest entries in the franchise. One of the key creative choices behind the reboot is the decision to tell an original story that exists within the established universe rather than directly adapting a single game storyline. This allows the narrative to explore new characters and situations, while still respecting the rules and lore that fans recognize. The events of the film unfold alongside familiar elements of the franchise's timeline, meaning that major incidents from the broader Resident Evil world may be happening simultaneously but from a different perspective. The characters introduced in the reboot are portrayed as ordinary people caught in extraordinary circumstances, a deliberate shift away from earlier portrayals of highly trained action heroes. By focusing on individuals who are unprepared for the horrors unfolding around them, the film emphasizes the survival aspect of the story. The audience witnesses their confusion, fear, and desperation as they struggle to understand what is happening and how to escape it. This grounded approach makes the threat feel more immediate and believable, reinforcing the horror rather than diminishing it through exaggerated heroics. Another defining element of the reboot is its commitment to a stronger horror tone. Previous adaptations often prioritized explosive action sequences and large-scale spectacle, which sometimes overshadowed the slower, suspense-driven terror that made the original game so effective. The new film deliberately moves in the opposite direction, building tension through silence, uncertainty, and the gradual revelation of how deeply the infection has spread. Scenes are structured to make the audience anticipate danger long before it appears, creating a lingering sense of dread rather than relying solely on sudden shocks. The creatures themselves remain one of the most terrifying aspects of the Resident Evil universe. The reboot portrays infected humans not just as mindless attackers but as tragic victims of a disease that strips them of their identity. This portrayal adds emotional weight to the horror, reminding viewers that each creature was once a person with a life and memories. Alongside these infected figures are more grotesque mutations born from experimental viruses, reinforcing the theme that tampering with biology can create horrors beyond imagination. The narrative also explores the gradual collapse of social order as authorities struggle to contain the outbreak. Communication systems fail, emergency services become overwhelmed, and civilians are left to fend for themselves. This breakdown of structure creates a chaotic and unpredictable environment in which danger can emerge from any direction. By showing how quickly society can unravel when confronted with an uncontrollable biological threat, the film taps into real-world anxieties about pandemics and institutional failure. Visually, the reboot aims for a more grounded and realistic aesthetic. Lighting is often dim and naturalistic, with shadows playing a major role in concealing threats and heightening tension. The camera tends to stay close to the characters, capturing their reactions in tight, claustrophobic frames that make the audience feel trapped alongside them. This visual style contrasts with the glossy, high-energy look of earlier adaptations and reinforces the film's return to a more intimate, horror-focused approach. The story's pacing reflects the unpredictable rhythm of a disaster unfolding in real time. Quiet moments of temporary safety are interrupted by sudden bursts of violence, mirroring the way survivors in such a situation might experience brief periods of calm followed by intense panic. This structure allows the film to maintain suspense throughout its runtime, as viewers are never certain when the next attack or revelation will occur. Behind the scenes, the reboot has attracted attention because of the creative team guiding the project. The choice of director signaled a shift toward a filmmaker known for building tension and psychological horror rather than relying solely on visual spectacle. This change in creative leadership has been widely seen as an attempt to restore the franchise's identity as a survival horror story rather than a purely action-driven series. The development process for the film also reflected strong interest from major studios, highlighting the continued commercial and cultural importance of the Resident Evil brand. Multiple companies reportedly competed for the opportunity to distribute the reboot, demonstrating confidence that a new interpretation of the franchise could attract both longtime fans and newcomers. As production progressed, additional details emerged about the types of characters and situations the story would focus on. Reports described a narrative involving a seemingly ordinary delivery worker, a mysterious package, and a chain of events that spirals into a large-scale bioterror incident. This setup emphasizes how small, everyday actions can have catastrophic consequences in a world where dangerous biological agents are secretly being developed and transported. The film's place within the broader Resident Evil timeline is designed to feel connected, without being restricted by previous adaptations. By existing in the same universe but telling a self-contained story, the reboot allows for creative freedom while still leaving the door open for future installments that could expand on its events. This approach mirrors the structure of the video game series, where different entries often focus on separate characters and locations while contributing to an overarching narrative about viral experimentation and corporate corruption. The emotional core of the story lies in the characters' attempts to retain their humanity in a situation that constantly threatens to strip it away. As they witness friends, colleagues, and strangers transformed into violent creatures, they are forced to make choices that challenge their morality. Deciding whether to help an infected person, abandon someone who cannot keep up, or risk their own safety to save others becomes a recurring dilemma. Highlighting the psychological cost of survival, the reboot also pays attention to the investigative side of the Resident Evil universe, gradually revealing clues about how the outbreak began and who is responsible. Documents, hidden laboratories, and cryptic messages serve as narrative tools that allow the audience to piece together the truth alongside the characters. This investigative element adds depth to the story, turning it into more than just a fight for survival and instead framing it as an uncovering of a massive and deliberate conspiracy. As the film moves toward its later stages, the scope of the crisis expands, showing that the initial outbreak is only part of a much larger problem. The realization that the virus could spread beyond a single city or facility raises the stakes and transforms the narrative from a localized horror story into a potential global catastrophe. This escalation reinforces the franchise's long-standing theme that once such a virus is released, containing it becomes nearly impossible. By the time the story reaches its conclusion, the reboot has established a new foundation for the Resident Evil film universe, one that prioritizes atmosphere, character-driven tension, and biological horror over explosive spectacle. The ending leaves space for continuation. Why?